Hey guys, Mike here. So today I'm here to talk to you about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. In this review I'll be going over a brief summary of the plot, my quick thoughts about the film and whether or not you guys should go and see it. So I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler free. However, if you don't know anything about the film and you want to go in completely blind, then it's just come back to this video once you've seen the film. So with that, let's get started, shall we?
Hey, Mr. Rogers!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Please won't you be my neighbor?
That was wonderful.
So A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood stars Matthew Rhys as Lloyd Vogel and Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers, or Mr. Rogers. In A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Lloyd Vogel is told he has to write a small piece on Mr. Rogers. So he goes to meet him and he starts interviewing him, and he finds out that there's a little bit more to Mr. Rogers than he initially thought. So Lloyd decides to keep interviewing Mr. Rogers to try and find out more about him, and to try and find out a bit more about Fred Rogers the person. But at the same time, Mr. Rogers is also trying to find out a little bit more about Lloyd Vogel and help him through his problems that he's having, which initially Lloyd is very dismissive of. And so we have A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. So first of all guys, a little disclaimer, I had heard of Mr. Rogers before, but I had no idea who he was or really anything he did. I only really knew the name and kind of what he looked like. So for me, going into this one, I didn't really have any preconceived notions of what Mr. Rogers should be like in this. But you know, it's Tom Hanks who's playing him, so naturally it's going to be a good character. And that's the first thing I want to talk about, Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers. Tom Hanks is pretty much one of my all-time favourite actors. I have never seen him give a bad performance, though I imagine he has been in one or two stinkers in his career. For me personally, he's always been a beacon of what great acting should be. Not necessarily because he's the most funniest actor, not necessarily because he's the most dramatic actor. He's just always consistent and he always brings his own natural charisma to these roles. Because honestly, I've never heard a single person say a bad word about Tom Hanks. Forget about America's sweetheart, he just tends to be the world's sweetheart. And that's why I really love Tom Hanks. And he definitely brings that to the role of Mr. Rogers. You hang on every single one of his words, and he just shows off what an inspirational character the Mr. Rogers was. Not just to children, but to people of all ages. Though I wouldn't necessarily say this is Tom Hanks' best performance. Far from it. It's no Forrest Gump or Green Mile or Saving Private Ryan. But this is definitely a great Tom Hanks performance. I know that Tom Hanks has received an Oscar nomination for this performance, but honestly, I don't think enough love and attention has gone towards Matthew Rhys in this movie. Because though Tom Hanks is pretty much all over the posters, and the main advertisement goes towards his character, this is Lloyd Vogel's story. And Matthew Rhys is really good in this movie. I don't believe I've seen him in anything before, but honestly, I think this is an actor who I'm really going to watch out for. He goes through an amazing character arc and he shows off a lot of range in this movie. Because first and foremost, this is Lloyd Vogel's story. He's the one who goes through the significant change, and it's his character arc we follow. Because no disrespect to Tom Hanks in this movie, but his character doesn't really go through any change in this. Pretty much from the start to the end, he remains the same person. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing because this isn't his movie. He's not the one who's learning a lesson or growing from this experience. It's all about how he helps Lloyd deal with his emotional issues. And that is the key focus of this movie. It's about talking through your problems. Because we all have our problems. We all have things that we're dealing with. And at the end of the day, it's important that we talk about them. Now, this obviously isn't easy for a lot of people, but honestly, if you can find that one person who you can just tell all your problems to, or just, even if they're just sitting there and listening, even if they're not necessarily giving advice, it's important to find that person and just, you know, talk about your problems. And those are the scenes that I really loved in this movie. The scenes where slowly he's breaking down his barriers and little by little he's letting people into his problems and just talking a bit more about how he feels. I won't talk about the actual subject matter that he's going through in this movie because I do believe it enters spoiler territory. But honestly, I think it is something we can all kind of relate to. And something else I quite liked as well. When they were doing the scene transitions from place to place, city to city, they kind of showed off these little models that Mr. Rogers had on his set. And I think that was a really good thing because it kind of keeps you in the Mr. Rogers world, whilst at the same time showing a bit more of a creative transition than most movies. So I just thought that was a stroke of genius. Overall guys, I really like this movie. It's not necessarily anything amazing, but it's more about the conversation that starts from watching this one. It's about communication, the human spirit, and just trying to be a bit more friendly to one another. And I think that's an important message we can all definitely take from this one. Yes, Tom Hanks is really good in this movie, but honestly, I think Matthew Rhys is the one who should have had a bit more award consideration. But now, as for or not, you guys should go and see it. I would definitely recommend that you guys should go watch this one. Because though it's not one of my all-time favourite Tom Hanks movies, this one is definitely worth seeing. Because honestly, I think A Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood has something for everyone. And I imagine it'd be even better for you if you know beforehand who Mr. Rogers was. Hell, I didn't really know who he was, so I imagine if you know who he was before watching this one, you'll have an even better time than I did. But still, go watch this one, I think you'll enjoy it. Okay guys, that's my review of A Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And what's your favourite Mr. Rogers moment? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. Until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!